You remember the lines, endless. Cars lined up for miles, just waiting for gas. You remember staring at the pump, the numbers ticking up. 79 cents, then $1 for a single gallon, a price that just years before was unthinkable. You stood there and you felt it, the feeling that the money in your pocket was becoming worthless. They called it the Great Inflation, a polite name for a national nightmare. Prices didn't just rise, they exploded. But the country wasn't growing. It was stuck. They invented a new word for it, a word that defined a decade of pain. Stagflation. You lived through it. You fought through it. You saw it with your own two eyes. And that feeling, it never really left you, did it? Today, you watch the news, you read the headlines, you look at your grocery bill, and you feel that chill, that same familiar fear. You ask yourself the forbidden question, is it happening again? The experts, the politicians, they had an easy answer for the 70s. They blamed the OPEC oil embargo. They blamed the Middle East. They told you it was a foreign problem. They were wrong. That wasn't the cause. That was only the symptom, the catalyst that lit the fire. The real disease, the real mistake, was made 2 years earlier, in 1971, a decision made in secret, a decision that cut the anchor and set your money adrift forever. (1971) August 15th, a quiet Sunday night. Most of America was watching Bonanza. Then, the program was interrupted. The president, Richard Nixon, appeared on television. He wasn't there to talk about oil. He wasn't there to talk about prices. He was there to talk about the dollar itself. He looked into the camera, and he told the American people that he was temporarily suspending the convertibility of the dollar into gold. Temporarily. What did this even mean? For decades, the world ran on a system called Bretton Woods. It was simple. The US dollar was backed by gold. Guaranteed. Your dollar wasn't just paper. It was a receipt, a claim check for a fixed amount of real, physical gold held by the United States government. It was the anchor. It kept the entire world's money stable. It was a promise written in cold, hard metal. And on that Sunday night, Richard Nixon tore up the receipt. He cut the anchor. He told the world that the promise was broken. From that moment on, the US dollar was backed by only one thing: the full faith and credit of the United States government. Just a promise. Just paper. They called it the Nixon Shock. Why? Why would a president do this? Why would he deliberately unplug the entire global financial system? Nixon blamed speculators, a faceless enemy that was attacking the dollar. But the truth was simpler and far, far worse. The world had figured something out. They saw America was spending on a massive war in Vietnam, spending on massive social programs at home, spending more money than it actually had. Other countries, like France and Switzerland, started calling America's bluff. They began trading in their paper dollars and demanding the gold, our gold. The vaults at Fort Knox were emptying. Fast. Nixon was trapped. He had two choices. One, stop the spending, make the hard decisions, live within the nation's means. Or two, cut the cord, default on the promise, keep the spending going, and deal with the consequences later. He chose number two. He chose to sever the dollar from reality, from the discipline of gold. And in doing so, he unleashed the monster of inflation. Because now, there was no limit, no anchor, nothing to stop the government from printing and printing and printing. It was a fatal mistake, a mistake that would cause the chaos of the 1970s, a mistake that is the reason you feel that same cold fear today. But here is the real folklore, the real hidden story. This mistake, this fatal choice, it wasn't new. It wasn't an American invention. It was an ancient trick, a trick that had been used by desperate empires for thousands of years, a trick that was perfected by Rome. Rome, the greatest empire the world had ever known, a civilization that spanned continents, built on law, on military might, and on a coin, a small silver coin, the denarius. The denarius was the dollar of its day. For hundreds of years, it was trusted because it was pure, 95 to 98% pure silver. It had real, intrinsic value. When a Roman soldier was paid his wage, he knew what he held. But empires are expensive. The Roman borders kept expanding. The wars became constant and costly. The generals demanded more pay for their armies. At home, the people demanded bread and circuses. The spending never stopped. Sound familiar? Soon, the Roman treasury was running out of silver, just like Nixon was running out of gold. The Roman emperors, just like the American president, were trapped. They had the exact same two choices. 1. Stop the spending, raise taxes, make the hard decisions, tell the people the party was over. Or 2. Find a way to cheat the system, to create money from nothing. They chose number 2. But they didn't have printing presses. They had mints. So they invented a trick, the oldest trick in the folklore of finance. They called in all the old pure silver coins. They melted them down, and then they added base metal, tin, copper, worthless metal. They mixed it with the pure silver, and from one pure coin, they could now mint 2 coins, or 5, or 10. It looked the same. It felt mostly the same. It had the emperor's face on it, but it was a lie, and the government kept doing it. Emperor Nero, he cut the purity to 90%, then 80. Within 100 years, the denarius was only 50% silver. By the year 265, it was less than 1%. It was a copper coin with a thin silver wash, a fraud. And what happened? When the people finally realized, when the soldier realized he was being paid in trash, when the merchant looked at the worthless coin and refused to sell his grain. Prices didn't just rise, they exploded. It took a wheelbarrow full of denarii to buy a loaf of bread. The 1970s, 2,000 years earlier, the Roman economy tore itself apart. Trust evaporated. Society began to crumble. The folklore was written in the ruins of an empire. Now, look at Nixon, look at Rome. The technology was different. One used a mint, the other used a policy and a printing press. But the mistake, the fatal mistake, was identical. Both chose to break the promise. Both chose to debase the currency, to pay for their spending. Rome mixed its silver with tin. America cut its dollar from gold. One was a physical debasement. The other was a financial one. Both were a lie, and both unleashed the exact same monster, inflation. Now, so, if the mistake is the same, what is the lesson? What is the timeless truth that fiscal folklore uncovers? What is the real difference between an empire that survives and an empire that collapses? The answer is not in the money. The currency, it always fails. The silver denarius, the British pound, the gold standard, the paper dollar. They are just measuring sticks, tools, receipts. The real lesson, the difference between survival and total collapse, is what's left when the measuring stick breaks. There are 2 paths for an empire, only 2. Wealth by making, or wealth by taking. Wealth by production, or wealth by financial tricks. Rome began by making. It built roads, it built aqueducts, it engineered the ancient world. It had productive capacity. But in its final centuries, it chose the path of taking. It relied on conquest, on tribute, on slaves. And when the spending got too high, it relied on financial tricks, debasing the currency. When the worthless denarius finally collapsed, what was left? Nothing. The farms were empty. The aqueducts were crumbling. The knowledge was lost. Rome had forgotten how to make. That is total collapse. Now, look at another empire, Great Britain. After World War II, Britain was bankrupt. They owed America a fortune. In 1944, at Bretton Woods, they lost their reserve currency status. The pound sterling was officially replaced by the US dollar. Their currency failed. Their empire was gone. So why did Britain not collapse like Rome? Why is it still a G7 nation? Because even when their currency failed, their knowledge did not. They still made things. They invented the jet engine. They pioneered radar. They discovered penicillin. The world still needed British engines, British medicine, British technology. Their foundation was real. It was productive. They survived because they still had value. Now, ask the real question. The question that brought you here. The fear you feel today. America. When Nixon cut the gold standard in 1971, he chose the path of Rome. He chose the financial trick over the hard decision. And for 50 years, America has followed that path. We stopped making. We started buying. We outsourced our factories, our industry, our skills, our knowledge. We convinced ourselves that wealth was moving numbers on a computer screen. We called it financialization. We called it a service economy. Your generation, the generation that lived through the 70s, you built this country. You built the factories. You built the interstate highways. You built real things. But we, as a nation, chose the easy path, the path of Rome, the path of Spain, the path of easy money, backed by nothing. This is the real folklore. This is the real reason you feel that history is repeating itself. The pattern is always there. History is not just a book full of dates and dead kings. It is a warning system, a machine built to remind us that there are no new mistakes, only old mistakes, repeated by new men who refused to listen. The inflation of the 70s was not an accident. The fall of Rome was not a surprise. They were a choice. The choice between the hard truth and the easy lie, between production and debasement. Fiscal folklore exists to read these warnings, to uncover the hidden stories, the folklore that connects the past to your life today. If you believe that the only way to understand today is by understanding yesterday, then you have found the right place. Join us at Fiscal Folklore.